Hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of RPA Master's Intelligent Automation Showcase. I'm your featured host, Derek Gerber, and today's episode is sponsored by Directive Consulting.
Directive Consulting is the trusted performance marketing agency for software and technology companies. Visit directiveconsulting.com today to get started.
All right, let's jump into the show. Very excited here today. We have Tommy, who is the VP of Product here at Robocorp, and of course, their fearless leader, Auntie, the CEO. Welcome to the show, guys. Wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. I know for the audience, we're very excited today because we have a lot of developers in our audience and we want to show them some love. So I think that we're about to showcase the developer's new best friend. We understand that sometimes we have issues with low code applications or either code based applications, which can definitely speed down your time to deployment. So our friends here today are going to walk us through some of the challenges that you guys know that you face every single day, and how we can solve that with Robocorp's latest technology and generative AI. It's going to be your new best friend. So, all right, why don't you guys kick us off, take us in. What are we trying to solve here today? What do we want the audience to know?
Well, awesome. I'll start off with a quick intro on Robocorp as a general platform, and then Tom is going to walk through showing Remark, which is our generative AI-based assistant for developers. So we started out Robocorp a few years back in 2019, and we all saw how fast RPA was growing. I particularly was part of a bunch of open source communities around Python, around developing automation. That was for test automation back in the day. But we noticed that we could use these same technologies into business process automation. That led us into RPA and exploring that space. When we were looking into RPA, talking to people, talking to developers, talking to customers, we noticed a common thread among these discussions. Number one was that the total cost of ownership was excessive. So the tools were costly to run and operate. And at the same time, secondly, they had a lot of issues with broken parts and a lot of maintenance overhead. So, when we looked at RPA sort of from first principles, we saw that it was being applied to rather simplistic problems at that time. It was maybe 2016, 2017 at that time. And we understood that it's going to go into more mission critical, more complex use cases over time. And that's where the citizen developer pattern really wouldn't fly with sort of no code tooling or low code tooling. So we wanted to approach the problem space from the developer's perspective. So we started building our Robocorp with a few things in mind, and we wanted to make it really robust and suited for automation professionals and developers. So we started out as a coded automation platform. We wanted to give the ability to automate across all levels of the application. So, UI interaction, API automation, all the way to accessing data directly. And now with the latest that we're going to talk about also is adding generative AI, but more on that a bit later. And then, of course, you need orchestration. So we build out ground up a SaaS-based orchestration platform natively in the cloud that lets you run your bots wherever you want, on-prem, private cloud, public cloud. And we support Windows, Linux, and Mac as a runtime. And then to wrap it up, we wanted to do a different take on pricing in RPA. So we created a consumption-based pricing model. So the only component that you pay for is the minutes of runtime and nothing else. That's the only thing that we meter. So no more bot licenses in that sense. So these are kind of the basic tenets of Robocorp: coded automation, flexible orchestration for enterprise and also for the mid-market as well, wrapped in a consumption-based pricing. And so this brings us into sort of the latest in generative AI and how we think about the space. Now we've been building this Python native automation framework for a while and making it suited for the enterprise as well as smaller businesses as well. And we see the massive explosion around generative AI starting to happen, sort of a conveyor belt of innovation coming through. And we knew that was sort of a perfect thing to happen for our technology in particular, because all these generative AI models have been trained on Python and can generate that really well. So we started thinking about, could we make the life of the developer easier by applying generative AI? And so our first approach to do that is called Remark, which is a AI-based assistant for developers. And Tommy will tell more about that. But sort of, in a broad perspective, our tooling and the platform brings together the developer tools that you need in order to build parts and run them. That's all open source based on Python. We have runtime tooling. We have libraries for doing things like browser automation, desktop automation, SAP, spreadsheets, you name it. And then you create the bot as code, you deploy it on a version control system, and that can hook into control room where it can be operated in an enterprise setting, either as an attended or unattended worker. So that's kind of the basic premise of what we have as in terms of product. And sort of the wave in generative AI for us, how we think about it, it actually allows more people in the ecosystem to start exploring coded automation, which in many cases is much faster to run, but also more efficient to maintain, and you can deploy it with the same kind of best practices of software lifecycle that you do for any other piece of code. So it sort of allows us to go past the challenges that people oftentimes have with working with low-code tools on a more complex problem like building bots.
Fantastic. You're giving me a great outline of like how we can approach the situation and where we're going. So if I'm a developer on the front end, I know that from what you just started, of course, and leading us into the Remark product, we have some generalized instances where we're used to everyday bot management, but the flexibility that Robocorp provides here is making it very simple to get started, manage bots, and then run programs at scale, no problem. So that's very exciting. And I know that we're going to jump into the live demo here next. So let's go look at that. Show us what we're talking about here. Let's bring the new best friend to life.
As Antti was explaining about Remark, we wanted to bring generative AI to the hands of the developers who are actually building the bots. Obviously, there's other alternatives of using generative AI, like actual capabilities within the bots. But now we are focusing on how can you use Remark, the tool empowered by generative AI, to build those bots as fast as possible. And if you're thinking of a typical RPA developer's day using the low code or no code tools, they have those a limited box of functionality available through a drag and drop interface where you can pull in features and actions into your workflow, and it does something. When you talk about code-based solutions and coded automations, there's sometimes a challenge of what to do first and how to start building your automations. And you have this kind of a blank VS Code screen, and then you have a question. Okay, what do I write next? What's my first thing? And that's what we wanted to solve with Remark for the beginner developers or early adopters, and then of course it also helps later in your developer career. It can do many things like help you fix problems in your automations and just generally be more fast and efficient in development. And actually, one of the early users of Remark came back last week and said that something that used to take about an hour for him to develop is now 10 to 15 minutes. So it's really adding the speed in your development. So looking at Remark, it is a standalone website as of now. We're later considering integrating it further into products, whether it's through control room or developer experience in VS Code. But today it's a separate website where you can chat with your assistant called Remark. It's at chat.robocorp.com, freely available to everybody. And I wanted to give you a quick overview on how to actually build something with Remark and use Remark as your assistant when building the automation. So we have our empty canvas here, and we have the automation developer courses on the Robocorp website, level 1, level 2, level 3. So I pick one small problem from the first course, which is taking you through some basic automation activities like logging into a website and filling in some data on the form. So I'm going to show you how to actually ask Remark to build the automation to first of all log in to this imaginary website here. And I'm going to use a little bit of advanced techniques here. I'm going to just copy some of the HTML elements from the website itself. And then I can actually ask Remark, and I don't want you to wait while I'm typing, so I actually have everything ready here. So I will just copy paste it. So I'm asking to open a page to this website, write username and password to the right fields using expat locators, and then press login button. And actually the correct username and password, they are in the HTML code to make it easy for beginners when they go through our courses. And I pasted a small piece of the HTML code from the actual website here so that the right locators can be picked. And then I'm saying that I'm working on Robot Framework language as of today. So let's see what Remark does for us. Remark actually is trained on all of the documentation, the keyword examples, portal bots, and a lot of Robocorp related stuff. So if you like, the first question would be that how is this different from ChatGPT, and what you can use from ChatGPT. So this is specific to Robocorp. So this is specifically helping the Robocorp developer using Robocorp libraries and Robocorp related things in control room. So it's like really contextual to automation developers. You can see that to our question, started building you a little bit of code. So it says open available browser, set variable, input text, and click a button. So we can just copy paste this one, and we're going to drop it into our project, and we can actually just try to run it. And I guess we will actually see something working. Yeah, so it inputted everything, and it was quite quick because it closed the browser already when things were done. Similarly, you can then continue that, okay, we went through the login. The next step, I could take a form from what's behind the login. And again, I'll copy paste the form, copy, oops, not the selector. I want to have the outer HTML. And then I will say that fill in the following form with some random example data. Again, I want expat locators. That's a good strategy for this particular form. And this is my form. Just continue with that. The Remark will remember the context of the previous question that you have. You can see the conversation on the side that I've asked before, and it will basically use the previous questions and answers that you've gone through and kind of keep the conversation up and running and complete, make additions to what you've done before. Now, in this case, it uses some Faker library. We don't necessarily need that, but you can see that it's starting to input text on those fields using really reasonable, great expat locators from the website, and then clicking a button to submit.
Now, of course, we do have recorders and such for doing this also in the VS Code extension. So we have the VS Code extension that you need to install in your VS Code. That's all you need to start working with Robocorp. So that does come with recorders, locator pickers, and all that. So, but Remark is there really to sort of get you started. If you want to give it some more context from the website, you can do that. But also you can just simply ask, how do I work with spreadsheets? How do I, work with Salesforce? You name it.
That's absolutely correct. And I'm gonna just bring a bit of the code here that we got, and I'm showing you one really additional nice thing with Remark is that when I'm running something that is not necessarily working, so we can see, I know that this will fail. It tried to do things before the element was available. So you can see that there was an error element with locator not found. So you can actually just go back to the conversation. It knows your previous code. So I can say that I got an error like this. And now it reiterates that, okay, so I gave you these parts of the code before. Let's see what we can fix what would be the potential fix for your current error. So now you can see that it's probably because this input element or this element was not available yet. And as we're working with Selenium, you can actually, you need to actually wait for those elements to exist, which would not be the case with Playwright. So you want to wait until page contains an element.
Yeah, fantastic example there. So just like that, guys, we wrote a couple lines of code. We're taking action. We're through a form. We're debugging, if you would, here in real time, and just having a conversation. I mean, that's the most fantastic part about all this that I see so far between the generative AI technologies and the conversational elements as you're going down the page, and you're still within that same conversation and the same code lines. Nothing's more exciting than that right now. So very cool stuff so far.
And now it works. So we just added one row in our sales data website, intranet, whatever you want to call it, and it waited for a while. So that's a completed automation using Remark. It's still writing something here. Well, maybe a thing to highlight from Remark is that it also gives you kind of the next best question. So it kind of guides you towards what would be a typical thing to ask next. So you're kind of not just getting the answer, but you also be you're guided towards what to learn and what to explore next. So if you click any of these, let's say, what are other strategies can I use to locate elements? It will actually just automatically post it as a question, and then Remark goes and finds your next answer.
Yeah, also you can notice that there's links in the answer, so it redirects you into the original source documents where the sort of the truth came to the answer. So it's always grounds it to the documents that are underlined in this training material. So you don't get that hallucination effect there. Or you can still get it if you prompt it the right way, but Remark will actually fetch links and also search for those links then to see if they actually exist. So that eliminates some of that.
Now, as this is still loading and we're looking at this as the audience, I'm thinking to myself, what's a project where I could start using this today? How easy is it for me to integrate this into my current project in an everyday workflow setup?
So the typical workflow for people using Remark today is that, like I was actually showing you here, I have my VS Code as a code like editor, where I have the Robocorp extension. I can write code, it auto completes. I can run my code and debug on VS Code, and then on the other window I have Remark, where I have the conversation or multiple conversations going on about the topics of my project, and then I just choose those snippets of code into my project that I want to use. And this is, I want to stress that this is what it is today, and we see a lot of development happening in this front now. So even though it's separate website today, it will of course not be like that forever. So it will be further integrated into the developer experience within VS Code and our control room as we go forward. But we've chosen not to do it just yet, simply because we want to ensure that there's ways for enterprise customers to be in full control of their data before we bring it to, as part of our tools. So we feel it's really important that now the first ones can experiment, they can go and test, but when it's really bundled into our product, there needs to be control on an enterprise level of these features.
Yeah, and my next questions were just going into how much control do we have over this? We know it's a cutting edge technology. So again, for the audience, you can get started with it today, but make sure that you understand, still in development in terms of other areas of that enterprise control that you might be looking for. But I know the guys here will take care of you if you have any of those questions. So don't be afraid to ask. My question to you in terms of training the AI, how long did it take to get to this moment to where we were able to have the conversation with just Robocorp technology when it comes to development? How long did that process take?
Back to the enterprise question. Right now we are running on OpenAI. We are shifting over to Azure OpenAI, and we have a lot of our customers asking, when do we get this to our own private cloud? And so we're working towards that to be able to get it to a customer's own private cloud, where they can have it also trained on their own bots as well. So it knows what code you have and can help with working specifically with that. Now, how long did it get us to get here? Took us to get here. We explored various ways of incorporating generative AI to help developers specifically. So we tried out a assistant for fetching locators, a documentation assistant, kind of the usual stuff. Explain my code. Everyone is doing that. We don't want to overlap with GitHub Copilot because that's already in VS Code. So we tried out these different modalities and then thought to ourselves, well, the chat thing really seems to work on things like ChatGPT. So let's just try to replicate that and make sure it has up-to-date documents on our end. The initial development, I'm not going to take credit for that because it was our developer team who did it, but it didn't take too long to get to a state where I thought to myself, wow, this will actually go somewhere. And I started using it myself pretty immediately to help building my own demos and trying out our product itself. So something that I use personally as well, even though I have a pretty deep developer background as well. It just helps you so much because you don't need to go in and dig into documentation, read line after line. It sometimes surprises you when it pulls out a piece of documentation you didn't know even exists. So it took some weeks to get it into first state, and then we keep adding capabilities into it, making the experience of working with it smoother. And then next step, like Tommy mentioned, starting to integrate it into the developer tool itself, where it can pull the context of your code, of the error message, kind of being always there, ready to analyze your code and help you.
That's fantastic. And so I know from today, getting started, I can get in, I can try the latest technology. We already just discussed the future of where these things are going and the power and potential capabilities of what's around the corner and not too far away. That's the way the speed of these things are always going right now. So, what else would you like to know about the environment in which you're heading into in terms of? Are there different roadblocks that you see in the future or any potential challenges that this technology might overcome for the audience?
I'd start with obviously the development speed of generative AI is extremely fast at the moment, and we're just seeing the first applications, and like we said, we are running on OpenAI's models at the moment, whether they are straight from OpenAI's APIs or from Azure. But I think thinking of an enterprise use cases and the capabilities, the availability of the open source models and their quality is increasing at such a rapid pace at the moment that that's something that we track very closely, and just came out from the meetings today tracking our experiments on various different models and see how we can provide the best of the best of the art of possible to our users.
Yeah, and the second part of that is also how do we bring generative AI into customers' specific use cases. So now we're talking about helping the developer. The next phase is to bring generative AI into the bot itself. Now you can do simplistic things like, okay, we'll just generate some content here and there. Not too exciting for me. I think people don't really realize today that generative AI is actually really good at also extracting data. If you have long email threads, it can also be used to extract intent and also structurized data from long form documents. So that's I think a novel use for generative AI that's not out there too much, but we have use cases that we are working with our customers right now to bring that into things like order to cash collection, where people handle long email threads about invoices. So we can use generative AI to extract key data from those emails and also suggest the next best action. So these kind of things are around the corner and will be published, hopefully later this year.
As I said, we never know what technology or what hurdles we're coming over next, but it sounds like for the audience here, we have a flexible, robust tool ready to go that you can start playing with today. And it's going to continue to evolve, especially within the next year or two here with all the exciting developments around generative AI. So, gentlemen, what would you like the audience to know about next steps? I believe they could go use this tool for free online, as you said, starting now. What website would you like them to go to?
Yeah, well, we have great documentation on our site. So if you navigate to robocorp.com/docs, you'll first find level 1, 2, and 3 certification training. Now, they are free and self-paced, so you can take them at your own leisure and start learning about Python-based automation. Doesn't cost anything other than your investment of time. And so we have that to offer for people. And share your experiences with us, join our Slack community, give us your feedback. We're very open to that. And we might even have something special prepared for the audience today here if they complete all 3 certifications, but we'll email those instructions a bit later. I'm gonna spoil something about it. It's gonna be some swag, so it's gonna be some Robocorp swag that we're gonna have ready for people who want to go through the certification.
You had me at a free swag box when I complete the certification there. So fantastic. I got to give me one of those monkeys right there. That was amazing. I know in the audience, everyone's going to love that. So I've truly enjoyed the show here today. Thank you, Auntie and Tommy, for joining us here on RPA Masters Intelligent Automation Showcase. We really enjoyed your demo here today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Derek.
Of course. And again, for your friends, please like, subscribe, share. Our audience is now over 40,000 of you strong, and we couldn't be more thankful or grateful for the opportunity to continue to bring you amazing technology stories like this. I've been your featured host, Derek Gerber. Thanks to our sponsors at Directive Consulting. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.